Loud. Well, welcome everybody to our weekly community Zoom. I'm glad everybody was able to jump on this evening, even in the summer. Sometimes it's hard when there's kids out of school and things are happening and activities, but it's important to make some time, even if you're catching this recorded, which many of us do. It's a great time to look inward and think about ways that you can improve your health. And I love to get started with some wins. And so I'm just going to ask if there is anyone who would like to share some wins from their week. I'm going to have, oh, there, Julie, go ahead.
I went to a baseball game, and it was for the whole company that I work with, and it was it was the whole spread. We had the box seats and catered and the whole works, right? Well, we did get, because I was able to do the menu, so I was the salad and all of that stuff. So I got good stuff, and then there was just so much left over. So I took a whole bunch of stuff home, and one of the things that turned out really good is I took the whole veggie tray home, like in a box, and the next day I just threw it in the oven and just roasted it with chicken. So it's like, okay, I'm good to go.
Instant lean and green. Oh, Julie, what a great idea. I love it. And I love the fact that you sort of had your fingers in the ordering of the food. So you knew that you were going to have something you could eat at the event. That's awesome. Great win. Love it. Anyone else want to share a win from the week? I know Heather has some cool wins. Heather, how are you? Good to see you. Tell us how far you're down now, Heather. Aren't you down a good deal? Can you hear us? She may not be able to hear us. Let's have, it was Troy still on there. Troy, can you share with us one more time? Before we started the recording, you were sharing a little bit. We'd love to hear your story.
I don't know. My basic story is I was going to have surgery. My cousin kind of stepped in, and it's been the best change I've ever had. So.
And down more than 100 pounds, 120, 130, somewhere there?
It's about 128, if I actually counted it. But.
Awesome. So exciting. Well, the freedom that comes from optimizing your health is definitely, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and the quality and the quantity of your life is eternally improved.
Oh, absolutely.
Reduce the inflammation. Oh, awesome, Troy.
The grandkids can't keep up with me now.
No kidding. That's the truth. I love it. Okay, anybody else have something they'd like to share? I'd love to hear more wins. Non-scale victories are awesome. Okay, well, if no one else has anything else to share, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, but please feel free to unmute yourselves at any time if you have questions along the way. But we're going to go ahead and dig into the topic, spend just a couple minutes going over some material. And this is all, everything we address is actually all in this amazing book, Dr. A's Habits of Health. And if you've had the chance to start reading it, awesome. If you haven't had the chance, no guilt, but dig in. It's awesome. There's tons of great information, and it's so motivating. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have some great material to share with you tonight, and just going to go ahead and jump into it. And along the way, just shout out if you have something to add, because I know that many of you have a lot to share and add to this. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about cortisol today and what that is. Some of you may or may not know what that is, but it definitely has to do with stress. And there are two main hormones that cause you to gain weight. One of them is insulin. And lucky for you, if you are on program, you're working with a coach, your insulin levels are likely really low. And we're going to keep them at a really consistent low level so your body can reset its weight at a lower place. But this is a different hormone, cortisol. And cortisol is another hormone that does either cause you to gain weight, or you can really relieve that cortisol and allow yourself to lose. And so I want to kind of go through just a little background on what cortisol is. And I have this little image here, and I think it can help you understand what's going on. The technical definition, and this is like more scientific than probably anyone cares to know, but it's a type of essential glucocorticoid steroid hormone released by the adrenal glands in response to signals from the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. So in the image you can see, I'm going to use my pointer, right in there you've got the pituitary gland, and right next to it pretty much is the hypothalamus. And those glands are sending messages to your brain and your body and your nervous system and your whole endocrine system. And when you are under threat or perceived threat, a message is sent to these little glands right here on top of your kidneys. These are called your adrenal glands, and these ones emit cortisol. And cortisol is actually a really necessary tool. We need cortisol. It's very important. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit more clear. Okay. It keeps us alert and awake. It runs our metabolism, including allowing our body to burn fat. So, I mean, great. I mean, we want some cortisol going on. Helps us with mental clarity and memory function. It balances our fluid levels and our glucose levels, our blood glucose levels. It allows us to escape dangerous situations, and it causes our muscles to respond with strength and agility. And with a pregnant woman, it allows for the development of a healthy fetus. And so having cortisol in your system is not a bad thing. It's the imbalance that tends to go wrong. And we do live in a day and age in a society where high cortisol levels run rampant, and we can kind of talk about what that does. And I just want to kind of go through this. Excess and prolonged levels of cortisol cause issues which include, and this is kind of interesting because it's almost the exact opposite of what a natural cortisol level produces. But high excess prolonged levels of it cause severe fatigue, weight gain, muscle weakness. So almost the exact opposite. Depression, anxiety, irritability, loss of emotional control, cognitive difficulties, cellular aging, headaches, bone loss, fertility issues. Isn't it interesting that the right amount of cortisol provides for a healthy fetus, whereas too much can cause fertility issues, new or worsened high blood pressure. So these are some of the negative effects of cortisol in our system. And of course, one of them that I know that many of us are on the path of losing weight. The weight gain issue is one of the many negative effects of too much cortisol in our body. And what's interesting about this actually is cortisol can be addicting. In the olden days, I shouldn't say olden days, but like back in our primeval childhood, when our bodies were under stress, it was generally speaking a situation in which there was some kind of physical threat, something that was causing a great deal of physical danger. And so we would have to respond with a physical action and run away or fight with our muscles. And so there was a release of that cortisol drug. Well, now most of the stresses that we undergo are mental, emotional. They are almost all in our own heads, and we don't have that same release. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I do want you to kind of see the pattern of the release of your natural cycle of cortisol. When you wake up in the morning, that's when your cortisol spikes. And that's great because you want to wake up and get going. And you tend to have a peak midday, and then it starts to decline. And that's what should naturally happen. And you should have your lowest cortisol as you go into the night and while you're sleeping. And I want you to have this image of what ought to be happening with your hormones, so that when you are thinking about staying up super late, watching the action movie until 1 a.m., what's happening with your hormones by doing that? Of course, once in a while it's fun to do things like that, but as a regular basis, that tends to actually reverse things and cause your body to be flooded with cortisol for long periods of time. And you go into what's called adrenal fatigue. So what we've done, we're going to kind of talk through a few of these things. Number one, getting proper rest. Dr. A talks about setting aside about a half an hour or so before you go to bed, turning off all your screens, turning off your phone, turning off your computer, turning off movies, TV, Netflix, whatever, so that you can allow your body and your brain to adjust, dim the lights, get to bed. Be your own parent and put yourself to bed. As a mom of 7 kids, I sometimes have to put my children to bed multiple times for them to actually go to bed. And be mindful about rest. Rest is probably the number one key factor in controlling your cortisol levels. And I always say the best learning activity you can do is sleep. And it's true. Get some rest, get some proper sleep, and try not to nap during the daytime. If you take a really long nap during the day, it can really change your hormone levels. But taking, a quick 15, 20-minute power nap if you need it works well, or just save up and go to bed on time. Number 2, eat a low glycemic, nutritious meal with 6 small meals a day. There's a lot of science behind this. This isn't just Optavia that presents this, but this is actually scientifically shown to reduce your cortisol. So if you're on the 5-in-1 or the 4-in-2 or any one of the programs that we administer as coaches, you are already doing this. So that's awesome to know. Number 3 is breathe. Breathe in your oxygen. And this one is actually so interesting. All day long, our body breathes. We don't have to think about it. It just does it all by itself. In and out, in and out, in and out. But generally speaking, it's a very shallow breath. It's just kind of you barely need. You just kind of breathe it in, breathe it out. And taking a minute and shutting off the automated pilot on your breathing and shifting it to a new pattern where you actually maybe even put your hand on your belly. And we can even do this right now. If you're sitting here with me, put your hand on your belly and we'll just take a nice deep breath. Breathe in all the way into your belly and then hold it for just a second and breathe a little bit deeper. See if you can get just a little bit more air in there and then slowly let it all the way out. And if you could take a minute during your day and literally just do this exercise 10 times in a row, your cortisol levels naturally will reduce. So what an easy thing to be done. I mean, if I were to tell you to lose weight, you had to work out, eat right, do this, but if all I just said was breathe, how simple is that, right? So every so often, I've actually started to get into the habit, and I kind of like this, when I get into the car, and I start driving. Once I've pulled out of my driveway, and I do this a lot, I mean, choose something that you can work it into your life, but because I'm a mom and I'm shuttling kids everywhere, I'm in the car a lot. And so when I'm in there, I think to myself, right now is a perfect time to do some deep breathing. And I just practice my deep breathing the whole time I'm driving. And just think of how much oxygen my body is getting and how healing that is. So just during your day, breathe. Number 4, build healthy relationships. I can't overstress how important having healthy relationships is to de-stress your life. Go to coffee with some friends. Go to lunch with your husband if you can catch up with him or your significant other. If there's a social situation that you'd like to be a part of, go be a part of it. Being social is actually, it reduces your cortisol levels. Being social in an authentic way, I should say. If you've ever been to a social situation where you feel drained, it's often because it's so surfacey and there's so many people. But connecting in a positive way, one-on-one or in a small group setting, that's one of the best things you can do. What else can be done? And these are all really just out of the book. In fact, I'm going to refer you, if you have the opportunity, to take a look. Many of these are just straight out of Dr. A's Habits of Health, and chapter 19 addresses stress, and so does chapter 25. So look for those sections and you can actually go into the details of this. Here's one that I actually really love, and that is know when to care. And I put a little picture here of mountain versus a molehill. The best way to reduce stress is stop stressing about things that don't matter. Stop stressing about the color of your carpet, or, that your counters are messy, or that, something isn't perfect. Take a deep breath and recognize when to give out your cares, so to speak. I just read an interesting book, and I do recommend it, but it does have swear words in it. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And really, really talks about this concept in detail with a lot of science behind it, and talks about knowing when to really care about things and caring about the things that matter. Organizing your life around what matters to you. And this is what Dr. A talks about too. Figure out what matters to you and invest your care into those things. And all that other stuff that's happening, it'll all work out. It's just those main things to choose to care about. So put your effort where it matters, and eliminate it where it doesn't. Exercise. We talked about when you have your body's flooded with cortisol, well, you've got to get some of that out. How do you do that? With exercise, with a good amount of exercise. Not overdoing it, but getting the right amount where you feel good. You've exerted your muscles. Laughter is an amazing way. I don't want to go over time here. Laughter is an excellent form to just finding some way to laugh, being a little bit more jovial with your family, with your loved ones. When things happen, laugh at them. When things happen wrong, laugh. It's funny, stuff happens, and it can be really just a joy. And then this last one that I have here is nature, connecting with nature. Nothing can be better than just going out, having some quiet time in nature, whether you live near a mountain lake or whether you live near the beach. Go out and take off your shoes and feet in the sand, dip your toes in the water, do something where you're connecting with Mother Earth. Really makes a difference with your body. Now I'm going to go through a couple things that should be avoided. Over-exercising. It's not interesting. So exercising is good, but over-exercising actually will induce mass quantities of cortisol. So recognizing when you're overdoing things. Stressful thinking, identifying that stressful thinking and eliminating it. And one of the most common stressful thinking things is the always and never. If you're thinking in absolutes, that causes stress. He always does this. I'm always failing. I never, he never, she never, whoever it is. Just relax on all that thinking, that type of thinking, and move on to things that matter and that you can do things about. Late night action movies, and we already kind of addressed that. And then clutter and chaos. If you're noticing you're feeling very stressed, reducing the chaos and the clutter in your life, whether it be physical chaos and clutter, or maybe it's with your time. Maybe you need to cut out a few things time-wise out of your life to find the balance that you need so that you can feel happy, relaxed, balanced. And one thing we didn't throw in there and I just thought of was getting a massage. That is a huge anti-inflammatory thing you can do. So escape plans. I want you to be thinking, because I'm going to take everyone off mute in a sec and ask for your feedback. let me see if I can do this. What is the greatest cause of your stress, or maybe you notice what causes the greatest stress, and what are your strategies to get out of it? I'm going to go ahead and open it up to discussion. I go ahead and exit this screen. How do I do this? Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay. I think I'm doing it. Stop the share. Did I do it? There we go. Thanks for sticking with me here. Take a second and think about your day, your week, maybe even today. What caused you a great deal of stress? And on the upside, what were some strategies you have used or that you used today that helped?
Work is always very stressful for me. I spend most of my day there. So if not in traffic, and that doesn't help. But how I usually, when I feel that in the morning is, you know what, it's like when I walk in, I can kind of see how the day's going to go. So what I do is I go on YouTube, because I sit at a desk, and I find like a 3-hour meditation relaxation sound. So, and then I just leave that streaming on my computer as I continue to work. That's how I do it, because it kind of helps me drown out everyone else that keeps coming into my office with drama.
I love it. I love
do
it. Having that quiet background music that's gentle and relaxing,
Mm-hmm.
that is huge. I love it. And I totally neglected to talk about that, but that's perfect. Other ideas?
I have one.
Yeah?
This is Tiffany. I would go outside, and I wanted to listen to this really bad today, and I know that I have so many things that I need to do and so many phone calls I need to make, and that kind of stresses me out because I want to be a super great coach. And so I decide that I'm going to be on this community Zoom, so I have all this weeding and gardening I need to do. So I just come out here and I leave you on very loud so every neighbor can probably hear me, and I don't care. And I just pull my weeds, and I'm using a little bit of exercise, but it's just, I feel like I'm getting something accomplished, and I'm hearing something positive, and I'm still getting things done, even if I have to multitask a little bit. But it's doing something in a positive way, and I love it when my gardens look better than they are looking right now. But you know, that's kind of fun for me to do.
You know what? And that's something that Dr. A mentions in his book, is getting out and weeding. There's nothing so good as just weeding your garden. I mean, that can be very relaxing, very stress reducing. Love it, Tiffany. Thank you. Other ideas, other experiences?
I'll share. We just moved last week, and moving is never fun. Well, it's fun. It's exciting. It's a fun move, but it's a lot of work. So I found myself a little stressed and grouchy and snippy, and and I thought, okay, what can I do to de-stress? And for me, a lot of times when I'm stressed, or it could just be about something, even a happy stress like that, but maybe it's a stress that's something's really bothering me, it's really emotional for me, I'll tend to clam up and hide away and just want to deal with it on my own. But what always helps me is forcing myself to go to lunch with a friend, get out, talk to people, just get around the energy of other people always lifts me up. And that, and then exercise, and I particularly my mood is elevated and my stress is reduced if it's outside. I mean, in the winter here, we don't have a lot of opportunity for that, but in the summer, I can't believe the amount of stress it reduces when you're just outside with the air, and even like trying to walk on dirt rather than pavement. There's something mentally that goes on in your brain to just, it just connects you back to nature. It's kind of like the weeding. I think there's something therapeutic about that. You're in dirt, you're in the sun. So I just like to get outside and connect with others. So
I love it. Yeah, Heather, I feel the same way lately. I've been going out and walking, and it's just beautiful to be out there and smell, you know, the smells, smell the flowers. I mean, stop and smell the flowers. That's a well tuned remark is take a minute and enjoy nature and actually smell the smells around you, especially the beauty that's around you. One remark that just came to my mind when Tiffany was mentioning about how she wants to, like, she has things in her mind and they're mulling around and she's like, oh, I've got these things, I want to do everything and I have all these things I need to do. And that is functioning in a place of structure. That is a huge de-stressor. If you know you've already set aside an hour to prepare for whatever presentation you're going to make, then you don't have to feel stressed about it right now, because you know that at that certain time during the day, you're going to sit down and do it. It's when we don't have a plan in place that the stress can heap onto us. And so learning to function in structure, what I mean by that is just really kind of being clear about when and where you're doing things, really takes the stress out of life. And that's one of the skills and skill sets that we've learned here in Optavia too, is functioning in a place of structure. And it just makes everything much easier. It's part of that decluttering, that reducing chaos. Any other questions? It may not pertain to stress, but I want to open it up. If anyone has any questions on their journey or anything that they have questions about with their own health they'd like to address, we have a lot of coaches on here. We'd be happy to answer that. Oh, everyone's good. Sounds like everyone's doing great. Well, I'm so glad you could all join. Oh, one question, Beth.
Actually, I was going to make a comment. Sometimes silence can be uncomfortable. And I felt the urge right then to go, oh, well, let me offer something. But just being in silence is really therapeutic.
That's
it.
Thank you. I agree. And with that moment of silence, just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. And if you're catching this recording, I'm so glad you took the time out from your busy life and took a minute to think about yourself and how you want to de-stress. And I do challenge you from this last half hour, if there is something that stood out to you that you thought, I could do better on that, or maybe I could do this, and maybe it doesn't have to do with stress at all, but maybe it has to do with something else, write that down and execute it. Be obedient to your own intuition. And I challenge you to do that. And that's how I'll end. So thanks so much. Glad you could join us. And if you are on, shall I go ahead and end the recording, Heather?
Yeah, go ahead and end recording.